The next sort of section of questions, maybe I'll direct toward Chiwe and Jeff to start with, which is, how do you find films? What percent are open submissions versus sort of shopping through other festivals? How much time do you spend looking at, previewing / giving a chance to a film you haven't, heard about yet? And the part 6B is how, are there some major, I don't know, just little tips, advice, do not do, trends I'd like to see disappear in terms of the level of films that come in without, a lot of pre-screening buzz?
Okay, so the way IndieFest works, and the way all three of the festivals work, all three of the festivals that IndieFest presents have different programmers. And I'm actually not one of them generally. There's a few films, usually each festival, that I'll sort of get in the festival because I really want to show it. Like I have a relationship with Bill Plimpton. So whenever Bill Plimpton has a movie come out, I get Bill Plimpton, let me show his movie, and that's the kind of programming I do. It's not very programming. I don't know why I'm sitting up here on the programming panel. Anyway, so we have people who watch the films that are submitted. There's not generally a percentage of like how many films, I don't know what the percentage is of films that are submitted versus films that are played out of festivals. For DocFest, the one that starts on Friday, and we have two programmers, Faye and Bill Banning. Faye Dearborn watches the submissions that are sent to us. Bill Banning travels to about 5 or 6 film festivals every year, and he invites films to play. And I think Bill has 15 films in DocFest, and Faye, I then would have 21. So that would then be the ratio of submitted to invited. Features, shorts are always just come from films that are submitted. At IndieFest, there's a big pile of programmers. We have Anita and Kayla, Anita Manga and Kayla Janice, who program from, I don't know where they program from, but they bring films to the festival and we play them. They're not submitted films. They're films that they've seen or heard about or just really want to show or something. And I think Anita generally does 8 to 10 films, Kayla maybe 4 to 6. And so everything else at IndieFest comes through submissions, and then those submissions are watched by programming committees who, so the film comes in, we get about 1,000 submissions. The films come in and they get separated out by category, and there's a short narrative category, a feature narrative category, a short doc category, a feature doc category, an animation category, and then committees to watch those films when they come in. So the committees watch those films, and this is the sort of the hard part for you guys to understand, or maybe to accept, is that if anybody on the committee likes it, they'll send it on to somebody else to look at. So it's really, it's kind of hard to say like what the basic like tricks, bottom line, or whatever, like what is the submission standard? There really isn't one. It's sort of like if something catches somebody's fancy, that's actually good enough to send it on to the next step. And the next step would then be Holly or Ilya or whoever is programming for IndieFest that year. I've actually keep losing programmers, mainly because the Film Society keeps hiring them. That would be Joanne, by the way. But she's great, so congratulations. Anyway, so then the programmers would then take the films that the committee sent up and then watch everything. And then when they watch everything, they now have to kind of curate a program, put together something that doesn't kind of overlap or conflict. They have to complement each other. It's really hard. So what happens is, say you've got a documentary about Katrina. You've got 2 really good documentaries about Katrina, but you're not going to show 2 documentaries about Katrina in a film festival that only has 40 programs. So basically one film of those 2 films is going to get programmed. And so it's kind of hard to say, like, there's no, I don't know, it's really fuzzy how programming works, at least in my festival, in our world. Now, so that's DocFest and IndieFest. Another Hole in the Head is programmed by 2 guys named Eric and George, and they invite films that they find out about by reading obsessively horror and sci-fi film blogs, and getting people who distribute horror and sci-fi films to send them DVDs. And we also do a call for entries. I think we got about 300 or 400 submissions last year, mostly shorts, which is weird because we only show like 12 shorts in the festival, but anyway. And so most of that festival, I would say maybe 60% is films that are invited versus 40% of films that are submitted or something like that. I mean, is that the sort of answer you're looking for, like numbers, percentages and such?
I thought they might be interested.
I mean, as far as, I mean, there's no real, yeah, it's really fuzzy. Sorry to say. It's like, you know, it's you never know. Like something will catch somebody's eye and they're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Like I had I watched a few of the, we were short on committee members to watch short docs for IndieFest last year. So I ended up with a big pile of short docs to look at. And the short doc came through called The Flying Shepherd from Romania. It was like the most amazing film I'd ever seen. It was 30 minutes of a bunch of Romanian farmers looking at flies. It was great. It was like, I love experimental docs. Anyway, it was great. It was this great kind of absurd thing. It involves flying at the end. But anyway, and I said, and I wrote in really big, bold letters on the little form that I feel like this film is great. You got to program it. This is great, great, great. Joanne didn't program it. You know, so, you know, sad for a Romanian filmmaker guy. You know, it was like the festival director really liked this movie, and it didn't get programmed anyway. But it's playing in DocFest.
Well, I'd say that I think for the most part, a lot of our programming processes are probably somewhat similar in that because there's so much stuff being submitted. If you submit a film, likely it will not be seen by one of the programmers. Well, there's a good chance that it won't be. And I myself, I try and watch as much stuff as I can. But ultimately, it has to be farmed out to a lot of other people who help filter and pass stuff up, as Jeff was mentioning. And so, in a lot of ways, what it takes really for it to progress up is for someone to champion it. You know, and not all the people in the festival have to like it. One person has to like it, except for this Romanian film. But you know, as long as one person really likes it, then it'll move itself up through that chain. And I think with a lot of filmmakers, there's all these different things that folks, you know, try to get more attention to their film. They'll have someone give the programmer a call, or they'll have a really flashy press kit and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, even if someone who I really respect calls me and tells me to watch a film, and I watch the film and I don't like it, then I won't like it. You know, so in a lot of ways, the film really has to stand up for itself. And you know, one thing also that I wanted to go back to, just in terms of just the indie landscape, is this whole idea of premieres that has to do with film festivals, because the idea of the premiere is really linked to a film festival, and it's something that filmmakers obsess about a lot, right? And it's something that we think about too. But in a lot of ways, my approach to this idea of a premiere is that really, to focus so much on premieres is really is focusing too much on the festival itself, where the real, you know, the real emphasis really should be on the films. And in a lot of ways, when you're thinking about it, you know, the thing that you really want to think about when you're dealing with your premiere is, you know, what are you giving up in order to wait for this? For example, the situation that we find ourselves in a lot is that we're in March. So there's all these films that get into Sundance, great. They're done with their premiere, we'll show them. But then the films that don't get into Sundance, then what are they doing? They're waiting for South by Southwest. They're waiting for LA Film Festival. They're waiting for Tribeca, all this kind of stuff. And then they're waiting, waiting, waiting. They pass on us, and then what happens? They don't get in. And then they've given up all these opportunities along the way. Former Los Angeles Film Festival. But that's something to think about. But one thing that I will say is that what you can do to facilitate that process is you can work with the programmers, because people do talk. You know, we all discuss. We say, hey, Rachel, did you watch that film? Are you going to show that? Because I really want to show it. They submit it to you. What are you thinking about? Let's make sure that this filmmaker doesn't pass up on an opportunity, because if you don't show it, I want to make sure that we do. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that you can have a conversation with the programmers to make sure that you don't lose these opportunities. Because it's really sad, because you'll see something, you know, for example, we'll invite something one year, it'll pass on us, and then what happens? We'll do the world premiere the following year, and they've given up, you know, all that time.